Sitting, it's inevitable. Whether you're someone who has a job that's sedentary, most jobs are these days, we have to sit, or even if you're on your feet all day. There's going to be periods of time where you need to rest those feet and you need to sit. No, I'm not saying to quit your job. No, I'm not saying to stand at your desk. When you're seated in this position at a 90-degree angle, the hip flexors are in a flexed position. They're strong right now. That tightness in that muscle is causing us to have back pain. And that muscle is your hip flexors. I want you to think of it like this. Let's say you had your arm doing a bicep curl, or at least in this position, for an hour, 2 hours, even 8 hours in this position. Eventually, it would be hard for you to straighten your arm and let it extend all the way out. Think of that when you're sitting. When we're at this 90-degree angle at our hip flexors are very strong and tight. And our antagonist muscle, our glutes, are weaker because they're not being used. What I have for you today is a mobilization exercise for your hip flexors that only costs you a few minutes every day that can help alleviate that tightness that you have in your hips and alleviate a bit of that back pain. You're going to use a simple tool, a foam roller. If you don't have one, these are extremely cheap and easy to come by. I strongly recommend investing in one. We're going to do a couple of drills that will help alleviate a bit of that back pain and loosen up those tight hip flexors that happen from sitting in those extended periods of time. For our first drill to loosen up these hips, we're going to go to the floor with our roller. Just rest your hip flexor onto that roller and stay here and just hold it. Now you're asking, Joe, how long do I hold that for? A good rule of thumb that I go by is for every hour that you sit, you have to do 1 minute of this mobilization. So if you had an 8-hour day behind the desk, you're going to spend 8 minutes on that one hip and then 8 minutes on the other hip. Be honest with yourself. How long did you sit today? You watched a 2-hour movie? It's time to do a couple of minutes on one side and then a couple of minutes to the other. Again, we're going to get onto the floor. We're going to line the roller up with your hip flexor and just hold it. You could do this again while you're scrolling through your phone, while you're watching TV, while you're talking to the kids. There's really no excuse to not do this at the end of your day after you've been sitting for 6 or 8 hours. It's really this simple. If it becomes too painful, you can ease off. You can switch directions or switch positions. But get away from rolling it out like it's a piece of dough. Just sit into it. This is really all you need to do. Just sit into it. Let that area loosen up. Once the one side's done, as always, we're going to switch to the other side. Line up the hip onto the roller again and just sit into it and hold it. Find a tight spot, hold it. So we finished our soft tissue mobilization with the roller. The next thing that we want to do is we want to do some mobility and stretching of that muscle. Take a knee. We're going to make sure that the top of the foot is down. From here, we are going to flex the glute of that side. So this is very, very, very important. We want to activate the antagonist muscle of our hip flexor, which is your glute. And unfortunately, since we've been doing a lot of sitting on that glute, it might not be strong. What's strong, again, is what we talked about earlier, our hip flexor. In order to turn that off, we want to turn on our glutes. While we're here in this position, we're going to actively squeeze our glute. Squeeze your glute. Flex it. Get used to feeling that glute. From here, once our glute is tight, we'll shift our hips forward just a little to start stretching into that hip flexor. We don't want to come down all the way to the floor and take tension off of that hip. Again, we want to keep our posture up. It doesn't have to be very extreme. Again, we're just shifting our weight forward a little. Focus on your breathing. Expand your diaphragm. Expand into your pelvic floor. Try to relax your body. You're going to see that this hip flexor will start slowly loosening up. We're going to do this for 2 minutes, just 2 minutes on the one side. Once we do 2 minutes on one side, we're going to switch to the other side, 2 minutes. Knee down, our back foot is flat. From here, we're activating and squeezing our glute as we shift our hips forward and we're holding. Good posture, big diaphragm breathing. Expanding all the way down into our pelvic floor. Slowly releasing, trying to get this hip flexor to relax while we squeeze and activate into our glute. You're going to start seeing that your posture is going to be a bit better. It's going to alleviate a bit of that back tension and back pain that we have from the sitting throughout the course of the day. You can do it, guys. Get after it.